How did tunnels dug by hand force the most powerful military on Earth to crawl into the dark with pistols and flashlights? In 1966, during the Vietnam War, the U.S. Army built one of its largest bases in Vietnam directly on top of 250 kilometers of enemy tunnels near Cu Chi, just northwest of Saigon. On the surface, it looked like American power had arrived in full force. Thousands of soldiers, helicopters, artillery, armored vehicles, watchtowers, floodlights, fortified wire. A massive military machine planted in the middle of the war zone. But underneath all of it was another battlefield, dug by hand, hidden in red clay, expanded over years, protected by villages, and designed to make modern firepower feel strangely helpless. The Americans had helicopters, B-52s, artillery, armored vehicles, almost everything modern war could offer. The Vietnamese had red clay, bamboo, hand tools, hidden doors, and patience. It should have been no contest. But Cu Chi turned war upside down. American troops could patrol the surface while enemy fighters moved directly beneath their boots. A soldier could stand a few feet from a trapdoor and never see it. A helicopter could circle overhead while supplies, messages, and wounded men moved underground without leaving a trail. So how did low-tech engineering survive one of America's most heavily targeted war zones? This was asymmetric warfare in its most literal form. American power dominated the surface, while Vietnamese fighters turned the underground into their battlefield. To understand how that worked, we have to go into Cu Chi, where the deeper you went, the less American firepower mattered. At first, a tunnel entrance looked like a solution. Find the trapdoor, blow it up, move on. But in Cu Chi, that trapdoor could be just one doorway into a maze, running under homes, fields, tree lines, and village paths. Fighters could drop into one opening and pop out half a kilometer away. A wounded man could be moved below the surface before aircraft ever spotted him. Supplies, messages, and orders could travel without leaving a trail above ground. Even worse, a US soldier could be standing close to an entrance and never know it. A patch of brush, a quiet house, a mound of earth, a footpath through the village. Any of them could be part of the system. Some entrances were deliberately cut so small that a lean Viet Cong fighter could slip through in seconds, while many larger American soldiers would struggle to fit. Cu Chi worked because the tunnels were woven into village life. Local families helped hide entrances, move supplies, guide fighters, carry messages, and camouflage the ground after digging. The tunnels were not separated from daily life. They ran through it. That made the battlefield incredibly hard to read. And for that kind of invisibility to work, the land itself had to cooperate. Cu Chi's red laterite clay hardened like concrete when dry, strong enough to support narrow tunnels without collapsing as easily as softer soil. For tunnel builders, that was everything. If the ceiling fails, the system dies. Deeper down, the design became even more dangerous. Some descriptions place parts of the system in 3 layers, roughly 3, 6, and 9 meters deep. The upper level allowed quick movement. The deeper levels gave people a better chance of surviving heavy bombing. A bomb might destroy the jungle above. But what happened below? That was the question the Americans could never answer with confidence. Then came the genius details that kept the whole thing invisible. Ventilation holes were blended into brush or shaped like termite mounds. Soil from digging was carried away in baskets, scattered into fields, dumped into water, or hidden so it would not form suspicious piles. And cooking? That was the ultimate stealth problem. Smoke gives away a position fast, so the Vietnamese used the Hoang Cam stove, pushing smoke through long underground channels before it surfaced cool, thin, and broken apart, easy to lose in morning mist. At Cu Chi, survival meant redesigning normal life for invisibility. Breathing, cooking, sleeping, digging, treating wounds, moving at night. Built by hand, expanded over years, protected by villages, and shaped by the land itself. Cu Chi behaved less like a target and more like a living thing under the battlefield. And once the Americans understood that, they tried to kill it with everything they had. The first big blow came in January 1966, Operation Crimp. Around 8,000 American and Australian troops swept into the Hobo Woods near Cu Chi, searching for enemy bases. They found tunnels, supplies, weapons, documents, hidden rooms, proof that the battlefield was much larger underground than it looked above. But the system survived. Then came Operation Cedar Falls in 1967, one of the largest American ground operations of the war. Roughly 30,000 troops moved through the Iron Triangle with infantry, armor, aircraft, engineers, bulldozers, and demolitions. 30,000 men. And still, hidden passages remained. That is where the tunnel war became psychological. Imagine being a soldier in that operation. You have air support overhead, bulldozers tearing through the jungle, engineers blowing entrances apart, commanders calling areas cleared. Then, days later, the enemy is back. From where? No one can say for sure. That was the frustration. You could destroy a trapdoor, burn vegetation, collapse a passage, and still wonder if the real system was 5 feet away, 10 feet below, or already behind you. So the chase intensified. Water was pumped in, gas hissed into the dark, smoke was forced through openings, explosives collapsed entrances, bulldozers ripped up the surface. Then came the silence. No clear confirmation, no reliable body count, no way to know if they had destroyed the main tunnel or just damaged one branch of a much larger maze. And the dogs made the mind game even stranger. A trained military dog could smell what human eyes missed: a hidden entrance, a trail, the scent of people underground. But Vietnamese fighters learned to fight the dogs without fighting the dogs. Some accounts describe fighters masking entrances with American soap, familiar clothing, or other scents the dogs associated with friendly forces. Pepper and irritants could confuse the animal's nose just long enough to make it hesitate. Think about that. A $10,000 military dog, neutralized by smell, discipline, and kitchen spice. It was not just a defeat, it was embarrassing. That was Cu Chi in miniature. The Americans brought a tool. The Vietnamese studied it and quietly made it unreliable. Flooding taught them where to seal. Gas made compartments more important. Bombing made deeper layers more valuable. Defoliation stripped away cover on the surface, which only made the underground more essential. To be fair, American tactics did hurt the system. Tunnel sections were destroyed, supplies were captured, fighters were killed or taken prisoner. Gas, demolition, and bulldozers could make parts of the network unusable for long periods. But the US wanted permanence. Cu Chi gave them doubt, and doubt is poison in war. Eventually, the commanders faced the uncomfortable truth. If machines could not understand the tunnels from the outside, men had to go in. And the next battlefield was a black hole in the ground. The tunnel rats had one of the most terrifying jobs in the entire Vietnam War. They went in alone, usually one man at a time, because many tunnels were simply too narrow for two. Some passages were roughly 2 feet by 3 feet, barely enough space for a grown man to crawl, twist, and breathe. This was not entering a bunker, this was feeding your body into the earth. The moment you dropped in, everything changed. The air turned hot, thick, and stale. Daylight disappeared. Your world shrank to the size of a coffin. Gear that worked perfectly above ground became a liability down here. A rifle was too long, a helmet scraped the ceiling, a gas mask narrowed your vision and made your own breathing too loud. The flashlight helped you see, but it also told anyone ahead exactly where your face was. Even the pistol was complicated. The .45 caliber M1911 had stopping power, but in a tight passage, one shot could deafen you and blind you with muzzle flash. So, tunnel rats adapted. Revolvers, knives, bayonets, suppressors, anything compact, quiet, and useful in a space where you might not even be able to turn your shoulders. Modern warfare had been stripped down to instinct. Move too fast, and you miss the wire. Move too slowly, and the darkness starts working on your mind. Use the light, and you become a target. Turn it off, and you crawl blind. But the horror was not one-sided. Vietnamese fighters were living inside the same underground world. Heat, insects, disease, bad air, hunger, collapsing ceilings, incoming gas, and the constant fear that one discovered entrance could trap everyone inside. The tunnels protected them, but sometimes protection felt like a prison. Both sides were terrified. The difference? The Vietnamese had built the darkness and learned its rules, while the Americans entered it as strangers. Then came the traps. Punji stakes under loose earth, grenades tied to tripwires, snakes, scorpions, spiders, and insects waiting in corners or ledges, a hand on the wall, a knee in the dirt, a bend in the passage. Any of them could be the mistake. One early tunnel rat, Harold Roper, later said he felt more fear underground than he had ever felt before or since. No dramatic speech could say it better. Over time, tunnel rats became specialists because ordinary methods were useless. Captain Herbert Thornton helped form dedicated teams in 1966. Men like Staff Sergeant Pedro Rejo Ruiz, known as the Human Probe, and Sergeant Robert Batman Batten developed rules that came from survival, not textbooks. Red-lensed flashlights, prearranged whistle signals, sketching tunnel layouts from the entrance, never emptying your weapon unless you had to. Because underground, reloading could be the moment someone rushed you. Their mission was not only to find fighters, they were looking for the hidden machinery of the war. Maps, radios, rice stores, medical supplies, weapons caches, printing equipment, command spaces. In 1970, one underground discovery reportedly revealed a signals intelligence node where Viet Cong personnel had been intercepting and translating American radio transmissions from major US divisions. No bomber, no tank could find those secrets. Only a man crawling through the dark could find it. That is why the tunnel rats matter so much to this story. Their courage was real, their fear was real, their discoveries were real. And their existence proved the tunnels had already won the first battle. The most powerful military on Earth had been forced to enter the war one crawl at a time. Today, Cu Chi is one of Vietnam's most famous historical sites. Visitors can crawl through selected sections, many of them widened and lit for safety. But the real wartime tunnels were smaller, darker, hotter, so narrow that many American soldiers could barely fit inside, and so suffocating that even the memory of them haunted the men who went in. And buried under all that red laterite clay, the lesson remains: the strongest weapon is not always firepower. Sometimes, it is the will of people who have nowhere left to retreat. If you've ever visited Cu Chi, I'd be curious to know what stayed with you most: the tight spaces, the silence, or the strange feeling of standing on ground that once hid an entire war beneath it. And if you've only heard about these tunnels from history books or documentaries, what surprised you most about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this video helped you see the Vietnam War from a different angle, consider liking it and subscribing for more deep dives into the hidden stories behind history.